Now, as you know, we've been on a little bit of a anti-religion crusade recently. And coming in hot, Gothix. Back again. In my opinion, Jesus is the answer. Oh boy, this is going to be great. I cannot wait for this. Yippity-yay. Alright, Gothix, please tell us how Jesus is the answer. This is a 46-minute long video. We're probably not going to go through it all.
Videos on, all these controversial topics, culture, politics, stuff like that. I was very shocked to see how hostile people were towards my videos. If you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen people try to slander me and pick fights with me on social media. Maybe you've come across some videos that people have made to try and discredit me. Overall...
So, instantly, what do you mean you're shocked at people being mad at your opinions? Yeah, you have really stupid opinions, so people are going to get mad at them. Like, what? Where's the personal responsibility, conservatives? Please, make conservatives responsible again.
I was very shocked with how angry these people were. And it's not like I'm not used to trolls. That's definitely not the case. I've been a content creator for a couple of years, been doing it full time for a while, and that's just part of the game, right? That's part of the business. You're a public figure on the internet, you're gonna get hate. But I didn't expect the hate to be like this. Seeing people, the same faces, leave the same volatile comment across multiple social media platforms of mine, or people that spend hours trying to antagonize me on social media, or even worse.
Is this just like conservative discovers what it's like to be a public figure?
The other content creators that make multiple videos about me throughout the month, and I get it, like, it's content creation, you gotta make content somehow, but it seems very obsessive, and after a while of calling someone a TERF, a transphobe, a bigot, a anti-black, a black white supremacist, yeah, I'm still trying to figure that one out, but after a while of doing that, you would think that these people would figure out that I'm not going anywhere. Like I said, I've been a content creator for a couple of years.
So we don't really care that you're not going anywhere. Of course you're not going to leave. You're making money off of doing what you're doing. We get that. But if you are going to voice a dumb fuck opinion, then we are going to respond to said dumb fuck opinion. How is this so complicated for Gothix? You remember she made the other video too where she complained about people watching her videos and then pausing it to respond, and she was like complaining about it, saying that you never let me finish my argument? If you're a public figure and you post shit, you want people to respond to it, generally speaking.
Regardless of what content I make, I still have to pay my rent, so I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. And this is probably part of the problem. I think a lot of people think I'm making these videos just for money, and boo-boo, I can go get a job at McDonald's if I need to pay my rent. I don't have to put myself in a position where I'm berated daily by random strangers on the internet. Trust me, as much as you think.
Yeah, you would just go get a job at McDonald's where you'd be berated on the daily by random strangers, just in real life. Boo-boo.
Think I enjoy receiving that type of hate? I don't. It's kind of annoying, but you know what? It is what it is. Like I said, it's part of the game. My concern with all of this, though, as I said, is the obsessive nature of a lot of these people. And I'm sure some of you guys watching this might be able to relate this to your life in some way. Perhaps you've had a friend that cut you off and started slandering you because you didn't fall in line with a certain ideology. Maybe you don't support gender identity, or perhaps you rejected Black Lives Matter. Whatever the case.
Again, don't support gender identity. Everybody has a gender identity, Gothix. This isn't like a debate. This isn't debatable. Everybody has a form of gender identity. She rejects gender identity, guys, but she's wearing makeup, she's wearing a choker, she's wearing feminine clothes and earrings, and has a female, or a womanly cut haircut. But she rejects gender identity.
You off and started slandering you because you didn't fall in line with a certain ideology. Maybe you don't support gender identity, or perhaps you rejected Black Lives Matter. Whatever the case may be, I'm sure you can attest to experiencing similar things as I have. And I'm old enough to remember a time where people were able to debate things, have civil debate, not shit-slinging contests, and have a difference of opinion without thinking the other person is the biggest piece of shit you've ever seen in your life. It's actually...
So, of course, it depends on what that disagreement is on, right? This is something that conservatives do a lot also, is everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not a piece of shit for having a different opinion. Well, what is your different opinion? If your different opinion is that black people should be a currency again, then you kind of are a giant piece of shit for that opinion. If your opinion is that trans people are subhuman degenerates, then you kind of are a piece of shit for that opinion. It depends on what the opinion is. What are you guys disagreeing on? If you're like, yeah, I didn't really vote for Biden. I'm not really a big fan of Joe Biden. And the other person's like, what? Well, I'm riding with Biden till the day I die, bitch. I'm never talking to you again, Gothix. Then okay, maybe that's kind of dumb, you know? But if you're debating the, like, validity of a group of people having civil rights or whatnot, then yeah, that might get kind of heated, Gothix. She's like, I just disagree that trans people should have rights, you know? Why are people calling me a piece of shit?
Actually quite fascinating to me. And, you know, I'm someone that enjoys being able to have conversation with people, but there has to be an attempt to have a good faith conversation, right? I'm not going to engage with someone that is just being nasty to me. Like, why would I waste my time? I have other things to do, right? I got things to do, boo-boo.
By good faith conversation, she means don't be too mean. She's very sensitive.
The last couple of years, I've made a plethora of videos on various controversial topics, and I pick these topics specifically because I think they are contributing to a lot of the societal unrest that we're seeing. We're watching, you know, people just spiral out of control in the sense that it appears that people are losing their minds, you know, over politics, over social justice.
Social justice is kind of important, Gothix. You realize, like, the civil rights movement of the 1960s was social justice, right? Like, their social justice issues are actually pretty important. And it's also funny because it's more like people like you that seem to be losing your mind. You're the one who has said that election fraud is legit, that Trump actually won the election, that Biden isn't the real president.
No.
We're gathered together in the heart of...
At this point, you can't even defend Biden anymore. Even if you legitimately think that this election wasn't stolen, which it was, you cannot deny that he is bombing as a...
Oh my God, it's rich. Okay, if anyone's lost their minds over politics, it's you, Gothix. It's you, boo-boo.
And I make these videos because I want to try to figure out, like, maybe I can figure out why people are motivated to throw their support behind these ideas and then act so hostile at the same time. Maybe there's something that I can do to try to lower people's tensions and get people to have a reasonable conversation about something instead of screaming and thinking your neighbor is a bigot or a white supremacist. And that's really the reason I started making this content. Trust me, I didn't pick it. I was making video game content before this on Twitch, but I could not honestly sit back and watch the world burn without at least making an attempt to try and, you know
an attempt to profit off of it, you know?
get control of this situation. One thing that I've noticed with all of the videos that I've made and all of the research that I've done on these topics is that they all have something to do with dismantling Christianity. And I'm not saying that just because I'm boasting about the fact that I was recently saved, although I'm very happy that that happened. I wish I did that a long time ago. For those that don't know, that means I became a Christian recently, and I was...
So, you know, I'm going to say this every time. I don't care if it's the most common repeated phrase on this entire channel. The craziest people always end up being Christians. I don't understand how it works, but it does. Second of all, what about social justice is trying to dismantle Christianity? Do you realize that usually it's Christianity trying to dismantle social justice, right? Like, isn't it Christianity that tends to rage against gay people and trans people? Like, isn't it Christianity trying to dismantle social justice? If anything, it's social justice speaking out about the bigotry that Christianity reinforces. What are you talking about? What about accepting trans people or gay people is dismantling Christianity? And if you believe that it is dismantling Christianity, you're part of the problem. You're the reason why certain social justice movements push back against Christianity, because it's people like you that try to weaponize their own beliefs to bludgeon other people.
Agnostic prior to that, but a common thing that I notice with all of these social justice causes, all of these ideologies that are coming from the radical left, they all have direct confliction to something that's in the Bible or something relating to Christianity. You know,
do you think maybe that's a little bit of a self-report there, Gothix? Why does the Bible always seem to be against civil rights and social justice? It must be social justice's problem, you see.
For those that have been following me for a while, I often talk about Marxist tactics. I know a lot of other content creators on the left, they like to laugh at me for saying that because it just sounds like I'm a conspiracy theorist. Okay.
No, we don't think you're a conspiracy theorist. We just think you're fucking insane and delusional for every single thing that happens, trying to wrap it back around to some secret Marxist ploy.
Sure. The Naked Communist. It illustrates 45 rules for a communist takeover. And one of the rules is number 27. And it reads, infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion, discredit the Bible, and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. It goes on to explain what this is. With personal conduct now reduced to whatever feels good, do it responsibly, the acceptance of worship and obedience to a supreme being and striving to live the highest moral standards in one's personal life have been pushed aside. This also goes on.
So keep in mind, this is a lot of the reasons why conservatives end up loving Christianity is because they love authority. So Gothix likes the concept of having some divine authority that she can bludgeon other people with. Now, it's no longer her opinion that trans people are bad. It's according to the divine all-knowing being that trans people are bad. So I don't really care about what the Naked Communist book has to say about any of this. The truth of the matter is, you are once again using your beliefs to try to shit on other people. Also, like, isn't it like more than one thing? Is this like a list of fascist tenets kind of thing, where you have to meet a certain amount of them to actually be considered a fascist?
To say that such pseudo-church organizations are serving more as a community activist organization or service centers than communities engaged in the worship of God. Traditional churches, originally organized as places for self-renewal and improvement, pay attention to that, are now being diluted into social clubs.
So are we going to get a big sermon on how the church is actually way too accepting of gay people? Is that where this is headed? I'll take $50 that's where it's headed.
I'm saying, like, the majority, if not all, of the social justice causes that I've seen come from the left have direct conflict with the Bible. If you look at Ibram X. Kendi, the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist, there was this one video where he was literally trying to connect anti-racism to the gospel. I have seen pastors try to convince their churchgoers that Jesus was trans or non-binary. No.
Wait, that's not direct conflict with the Bible. That's them trying to intertwine their beliefs with Christianity. That's not conflicting with the Bible. What do you mean? You said they're trying to dismantle Christianity. They're trying to merge with Christianity in the examples you just gave. Oh my God.
Pastors tried to convince their churchgoers that Jesus was trans or non-binary.
By the way, the video she's talking about was like this one pastor one time at one specific church that said something kind of iffy about Jesus being trans. That's it. It was like one person. And now she's extrapolating that into a massive narrative about the secret Marxist ploy to erode all the churches and burn down Catholicism.
No, boo-boo. That's not a thing. And often when I try to bring stuff like this, a lot of people who are atheists, agnostic, or maybe they just flat out just don't like Jesus for some reason or another, they'll usually say something to the effect of, well, Christianity is bad because it's full of pedophiles, or it's full of people that want to convert homosexuality. They want to, what do they call it? The conversion therapy, right?
Yeah.
And they'll try to use these as examples to say, like, oh, Christianity is bad because of this thing. Well, if that's the case and people are legitimately being hurt because of the church, then the logical thing to do would be to close the church. That would be the logical thing. You wouldn't...
No, you could argue that people are harmed by bars being opened. But again, we believe in the freedom to do what you want to do so long as you aren't hurting other people. What the absolute fuck are you on about? Second of all, not all churches are doing harm. There are some progressive churches as well. It's the actual belief system of Christianity that tends to perpetuate harm, Gothix. Do I need to bring out my little anti-Christian document here? Do we need to pull up my anti-religion arc? So, first of all, you can look here from the Pew Research study, which shows that Protestant Christians, specifically white evangelicals, and even black Protestants, are among the lowest demographic which accepts gay people. The lowest. Okay? That's not a coincidence, boo-boo. It's like this because Christianity reinforces the bullshit idea that being gay is a sin based on misunderstanding and misappropriating certain biblical texts from, like, Leviticus. So, Here's the first example. And again, the logical follow-through of this is not to close the churches. What? The logical follow-through would be to oppose this type of belief system and argue against it in a logical and critical way. So that's one. There was something else I wanted to show also. Hold on. This right here. This is excellent. And it absolutely predicts what happened to Gothix right here too. Religiosity and conspiratorial beliefs linked in Baylor Regional Survey findings. So Americans who most strongly assert their personal religiosity are more likely to believe contemporary falsehoods. The findings indicated that biblical literasts, self-identified very religious people, and weekly church attenders are significantly more likely to believe that the 2020 election was rigged, something that Gothix believes. The COVID vaccine is untrustworthy, something that Gothix believes. Top Democrats are involved in sex trafficking rings. Not sure if Gothix believes that, but it's no wonder why white evangelicals are far more likely to believe QAnon, for example. I think that it's very important to examine the type of harm that Christianity is largely correlated with. Again, who here's arguing to close the churches? That's never been my argument, at least. I don't think that would go over very well. And plus, if we want to extend your logic, then you say that like critical race theory is being indoctrinated in colleges. Do you think that college campuses should all be shut down?
Exactly like that. I tell this story one time of, it's very embarrassing, but in high school, I tried flushing a Bible down the toilet, strictly out of a virtue signal. I never opened up the Bible, never went to church, never knew anything about God, but I had a lot of opinions on him. And yeah, I threw a Bible in the toilet in front of a bunch of girls in the bathroom. And, I was one of those angry, angsty teenagers. The reason that I'm bringing this...
So it's funny how you bring up the fact that you actually had no understanding of the Bible, and you were just virtue signaling, whereas it's people like me who do have an understanding of the Bible, who was raised Christian, that have issues with the Bible, Gothix. Like, just if you were like some pathetic virtue signaling soy boy, doesn't mean that all of us are. And it also doesn't mean that everybody who dislikes Christianity was as well. Stop projecting.
This up is to pose the question, if God is imaginary, if he doesn't exist, then why are people putting so much effort behind trying to destroy the church? That's a question for you. I already know the answer.
Oh, wow. Good one. If God doesn't exist, then why do you claim to hate God? Boom! We got a God's Not Dead Part 4 coming up, boys. Really, Gothix? Really? People argue against the religion of Christianity because Christianity is used as a bludgeoning tool against minority groups, as it has been literally for hundreds of years. So, you know what? Let's actually look this up. Did the KKK invoke the Bible? Let's find out. A preacher who used Christianity to revive the Ku Klux Klan? That's interesting. Okay. The Klan, white Christianity, and the past and present. Okay, very cool. The gospel according to the Klan. So as we see, for hundreds of years, the Bible has been invoked to justify all kinds of atrocities, and it is still being invoked to this day to justify bludgeoning minority groups like gay people and like trans people.
Answer. I'm going to give it to you, but I want to get your brain thinking a little bit. Have you ever heard the phrase, how to boil a frog? It's this idea that if you were to take a frog and throw it into a boiling pot of water, if you threw it into a boiling pot of water, it would jump out immediately because it's hot. It's like, right? So instead, what you do is you put a frog in a room temperature pot of water and you slowly raise the heat. And by the time the frog realizes that he's being boiled, it's too late. He's dead. So the people in power that are benefiting off of seeing society fight with each other, they're boiling the frog. The frog being people that are...
The people in power. Oh boy, we have it all, man. Now we have the elites. The elites are trying to cause division in this country. How? How does that give them more power? Can you help me understand?
Followers of Christ. And they're doing this because if you were to outright close the churches, or like Canada, there's a lot of church burnings going on. I don't know if they're still happening. Let me know in the comments if that's still occurring. I know in 2020 it was a big issue. But if you were to just close all the churches, people would notice. People would notice and people would say something. So instead, you slowly inject the church with social justice. And if you add things to the gospel, the Bible, if you
Wait,
add
what? How are the elites injecting social justice into the church? What the fuck does that even mean? Now, I don't know what she means when she says the elites. It's a very ambiguous term that can mean very different things depending on if you're talking to a populist or a goddamn Nazi, okay? So it's very arbitrary who the fuck these elites are. But I would like to assume, at the very minimum, that these elites are probably in positions of power so far as the government goes, right, Gothix? Is that a fair assumption, chat? What do you think? Probably, right? So then why is it that churches get tax exemptions? Why is it that the elites in the government literally give churches all kinds of taxes exemptions? Like, what? How are the elites trying to destroy the churches while simultaneously giving them special privileges when it comes to taxation? Oh my god, dude.
add things, you are therefore subtracting things.
Also, really quick, I like how she said, now you probably think I'm just a conspiracy theorist, and then she goes on to literally spiel off a bunch of conspiracy theories.
So instead of, like that book said, instead of going to church to worship God and have a connection with him, you are now going to church to be a social justice warrior, to talk about anti-racism, to talk about white supremacy and whiteness and systemic racism and inequity and all this garbage.
So white supremacy and inequity is actually not garbage by any means. It's very strange, by the way, that we have a supposed Christian here pretty much mocking the idea of showing compassion for your fellow brethren. It's a little odd there. Second of all, why couldn't some of these issues be talked about in the church? Like, systemic racism negatively hurts black people. That includes black Christians. Why couldn't you have that conversation? Didn't Jesus talk about caring for the poor and caring for the people that were less fortunate than you? Sometimes you have to talk about some inequalities in order to get to the root of an issue so that you can live out Jesus's teachings. Like, why is it that I, as somebody who literally hates God and God hates me, seems to have a better understanding of Christianity and the way that this shit makes sense as far as talking about certain social justice issues and mixing that with like Christian beliefs? That can make sense. Why is it that I have a better understanding of this than these supposed saved people?
It's not the point of going to church. It's not the point of being a believer in God. What I'm seeing is a symptom of a communist uprising. And that's not good. I know there's a lot of people in America that are in favor of communism, and these people were born here, I would assume. They're probably born here. They probably picked up on that information in college, but I know a lot of survivors that grew up in under communism, and their families starved. I have this one friend, Lily. I went to go see her recently do a talk in Connecticut. She's really...
So before we get on a big spiel about Gothix's friend, her source, trust me, bro, I'm not a communist by any means. I think that communism is pretty fucking dumb. But, again, you haven't demonstrated how any of this is a communist tactic. You're literally just saying, like you referenced two churches that had something like kind of iffy said out of context. And now you're going on a huge tangent about how the Marxists are infiltrating the churches.
Really awesome. But she grew up under Mao Zedong, the dictator, during the Cultural Revolution, and she talked about how families had to swap their dead children with their neighbors so that they could have something to eat. That's how bad it was under communism. And then you have people in America that are like, oh yes, communism, communism. In order for communism to work, you have to ensure that everyone is on board, and that's not realistic. So how do you push for communism if people don't want to participate? With communist uprisings, there are two main entry points. The first is family, and the second is religion. Which is why, for example, in 2020, during the peaceful protests, Black Lives Matter admitted that they were trained Marxists, and on their website, they said that they wanted to dismantle the nuclear family. They opposed the nuclear family or something to that effect.
Oh my god. It's the same talking points. These people never grow up. This is why they're still using the attack helicopter meme. Because they get one little talking point, and they literally never let it go. It was like one organizer of the Black Lives Matter organization that said they were trained Marxists, okay? It doesn't mean that all of BLM and all the tens of millions of people that were marching for racial justice were all somehow trained Marxists. Gothix. Remember how just a minute ago you said, not all Christians are bad. I don't like to generalize. So why are you generalizing all of Black Lives Matter as being Marxist because of one person that said something dumb? Oh yeah, second of all, the nuclear family thing, I don't know how many times I need to correct this misinformation. They never said they wanted to destroy the nuclear family. They literally never said that. They said that they didn't like that the Western prescription was always that of a nuclear family, and that we can also recognize other ways that families can exist, like community-based child rearing. Why is this so hard for you fuckwits to get through your hard skull? They point to some of the statements on its website, including that it says, we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure. Black Lives Matter full statement about family shows that it wants people to support one another broadly beyond the nuclear family. So Black Lives Matter has been derided as a terrorist organization, a Marxist movement. We found little evidence. Very interesting. Really? So this is the full quote. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. So, no, they're not saying they want to get rid of the nuclear family. They're saying they disrupt the Western prescription that a nuclear family is the only way to form a family, and they also support community-based child rearing as well. But again, I don't blame Gothix for not knowing this. Of course, to understand that information, you would need to read.
And that's why, is they don't want you to have a family with the people that you actually grew up with. They want you to be family with your fellow comrade. And in communist uprisings, if you have a very strong family unit, that is a big roadblock for communism, because you're secure in knowing that you have people at home that always have your back. You have a safe space, essentially, where people are always going to support you. They have your back, right? So that's one of the entry points for communism. And the other one, which is the main focal point of this video, and I'm going to make another video on all of this stuff because this is new context that I'm getting now that I've sort of started reading the Bible and going down the religious rabbit holes. I'm now understanding exactly why they're trying to destroy the church. And the other entry point is religion. This is why when communists come to power, religion is the first thing to go. And the reason for that is the government wants full control over your moral compass.
I mean, I just don't know, like, what... Again, she might be correct here about how, like, communists don't like religion, but you need to demonstrate that communists are in power trying to remove religion. And you haven't done that, Gothix. You failed on every front.
Or I should say, a follower of Jesus, I should say, not a Christian, because I think there's a difference there. But someone that is actively following the Word of God, the Bible. The moral compass is in the Bible. That is essentially what God wants out of you. And if...
What does the moral compass say about gay people, Gothix?
In order for communists to come to power, they need to have control over your moral compass, which is whatever they want it to be at any time. So they don't want you referencing a book. They want you looking to the government and saying, this is what we should be following. With that in mind...
Wait, you want them to be looking at a book and this imaginary divine power to say this is what we should be following? Like, do you want to just flip this around? Communism is cringe as shit, okay? But so is Christianity. And you're complaining about communism for setting up some kind of an authoritarian dictatorship in which everybody follows the one thing... But at the same time, you're advocating for everybody to follow the one thing, saying that that's God.
I've noticed something with all of these angry individuals who are trying to enforce their ideologies on other people, whether it be by trying to discredit them by making YouTube videos or slandering them by calling them a TERF or a bigot or a white supremacist. And
calling you a bigot is not slander.
I've noticed something with these people. Take a look.
I think outside of strict like theistic dogma or theism or whatever, the lack of religion is the problem.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I do too. Wokeness replaced it.
I look at all, because I recently became a Christian myself.
Oh, so, good for you.
Thank you. And anytime I...
Oh my god, dude. Wokeness has replaced religion. Maybe it's just that you people are so terrible at representing religious beliefs that, like, most people that have more than 2 brain cells don't want to follow it.
A lot of these people that are so vitriolic and are quick to slander others, call them a bigot, a transphobe, a white supremacist, whatever, these people are following the same social justice causes. Maybe not all of them. But by and large, from what I've observed, these people follow at least one of these social justice ideas. Gender identity, in my opinion, is one of the big ones, and it's one of the ones that is causing I think, the most damage, more so than the conversation surrounding racism and whiteness and white supremacy. I think gender identity is one of the most damaging ones.
Can you tell me what you mean by gender identity, please?
And I'm going to make a video on this too. I mean, I've been making videos on it, but part of the reason that I want to take a pause from being direct about these ideas and how damaging it is because I remember one of the first videos I reacted to on this channel was the Yuri Bezmenov video, and he was an ex-KGB agent that was warning America on the potential of a future communist uprising. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but I think he was right on the money. But one thing in that video that stuck out to me, and it's been haunting me for the last couple of years, is the fact that he says, it doesn't matter how much evidence you show someone, it doesn't matter how much proof you put right in front of their face. If someone has been demoralized, the truth doesn't matter to them.
Oh, this is exactly like what I remember that quote. You played that quote when we were talking about the mask thing. But what's funny is, it's people like you that refuse to accept the truth when it's right in your fucking face. For example, the fact that election fraud is increasingly rare, the election was legitimate, and Joe Biden is president. You refuse to accept that truth for whatever reason, probably because you make money spewing the other opinion there. But, yeah, like, we can do this all day, Gothix. And also, you need to demonstrate to me why God and the Bible is the truth. You haven't done that. I can demonstrate why it is the truth that Joe Biden won the presidency. I can give you information, statistics. I can give you data points. I can give you statements from higher-ups who work the election that have all said the same thing, that there was no election fraud. We've put that in your face, and you refuse to accept it. You're the one who is refusing the truth, even when it's right in front of your face.
Doesn't matter, because they're going to believe whatever they've been conditioned to believe. And that's just the result of someone that is demoralized. So
Right, like being conditioned to believe that the election was stolen. Good point, Gothix.
I see a lot of these people acting very combative and, trying to just attack everyone that's not falling in line with a certain ideology or whatever. When I see that they're also not religious in the sense that they believe in Jesus, they might say that they're a pagan, and they might say that they're an atheist, and I don't doubt that they are good people out there. Well, I shouldn't say good people because no one's technically good except for God, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I don't doubt that they are kind-hearted people that are not religious. But the issue is that when you're not religious, you might be more inclined to latch on to ideas as a religion in itself. So,
it's interesting how she's making these statements when we have literal statistics that prove her wrong. Wouldn't it suck if we had actual statistics to show that people who hold on to religiosity are more likely to latch on to other kind of conspiratorial beliefs? Wouldn't that suck, Gothix, if we had a study just from last year that literally proved that? Ooh, that would suck. Wouldn't it suck if we were able to prove that Christians, because they believe in the Bible, are more likely to latch on to bigoted beliefs when it comes to gay people? Wouldn't that suck if Pew Research actually found literal data to disprove what you just said? Man, that would suck. Well, a good thing Gothix is unfamiliar with any of this, or else her point would look really fucking stupid.
And this is why churches are being subverted. It's because during, when communist uprisings happen, the state wants full control over your moral compass. And for people that are followers of Christ, their moral compass is the word of God, whatever's in the Bible. And so
she's literally just saying things. How is the church being subverted? What does the state want to do about your moral compass? What are you even talking about? The state already enforces a somewhat moral compass in the sense that the state enforces laws. You cannot open your Bible and say, well, it is my religious right to drive drunk. The state will enforce that moral compass on you in that context. Can you please give some nuance? Please. You're just saying things that can be disproven in a heartbeat. It hurts. Guys, if you enjoy watching me suffer, please consider putting something in the super chat, okay? I don't suffer for free.
Oh, in order for communism to happen, you have to get rid of the churches. And that's essentially, like I said earlier, is boiling the frog, doing a slow infiltration instead of getting rid of it outright.
But where?
Because
what is the slow infiltration? Where is the example of this?
The Bible doesn't change, right? You can have pastors that are self-serving that might try to teach people these social justice ideas, but the Bible itself does not change. The gospel does not change. So essentially, it's an anchor for people in terms of a moral compass. It's never going to change.
So again, I hate this argument because their moral compass, being part of the Bible, also holds on to all kinds of disgusting, barbaric ideas as well. For example, that gay people are immoral. I always bring that one up because it's an instant argument crusher for these morons. If your moral compass comes from the Bible, odds are you think that gay people are icky and immoral. You can't explain why. You can't tell me what's harmful about gay people existing. You just think that because the book says so. Second of all, if your moral compass is rooted in the Bible, you're also more likely to not support, for example, a woman divorcing her husband even if that husband is abusive. Because God and Sky Daddy says that divorce is bad. Second of all, do we really want to look to the Bible for any kind of moral anything? I mean, we can already look at the stats, for example, that show that, let's see, religion doesn't actually make people more moral. According to a study done in 2014, researchers asked 1,252 adults of different religions and political backgrounds to record the good and bad deeds they committed, witnessed, learned about, or were the target of throughout the day. The study's findings may come as a shock to those who think religious or political affiliation helps dictate a person's understanding of right and wrong. They found that religious and non-religious people commit similar numbers of moral acts. The same was found to be true for people on both ends of the political spectrum. So, if religion helps people with their moral compass, it's not doing a very good job. Yikes. Not to mention, if you have other kinds of religious beliefs, that can be used as justification to do something that's absolutely not moral. So, for example, this new research published, well, from 2007, so it's not new anymore. In the article, University of Michigan psychologist and his colleagues suggest that scriptural violence sanctioned by God can increase aggression, especially in believers. So here we have Christians, people with their supposed moral anchor, who are more likely to commit acts of violence if God says violence good. Like, this is not a moral compass, my friend. This is you just blindly following Sky Daddy and interpreting your ancient book of fairy tales however you want it to be, to justify whatever bullshit you possibly can think of. Do we really want to look at the Bible for morality? I found a really interesting verse. So, do you remember how I had a little argument with that dude the other day and he said that murdering is not in God's nature? That got me thinking a little bit, and then all of a sudden I realized, wait, God murdered the firstborn sons in Egypt, right? And not only did he murder the firstborn sons in Egypt who were completely innocent, had nothing to do with Pharaoh's decision or Pharaoh's refusal to let the people go, he also made it so that would happen. Listen to this verse, Exodus. I will make Pharaoh's heart stubborn, but I will make Pharaoh's heart stubborn, so I can multiply my miraculous signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. Exodus 10. Then the Lord said to Moses, return to Pharaoh and make your demands again. I have made him and his officials stubborn, so I can display my miraculous signs among them. I've also done it so you can tell your children and grandchildren about how I made a mockery of the Egyptians and about the signs I displayed among them. So here we have God, in black and white, saying that he has made Pharaoh's heart stubborn so that he can show off his magic tricks, and in doing so, he murdered the firstborn sons in Egypt. This isn't a debate, okay? This is what the Bible says. This does not sound like a very good book to derive your morals from. Because now all of a sudden we have, well, here God did say murder's okay. So I guess that means murder's okay. And the murdered Hebrew slaves and the killed children when baby Moses was persecuted. Isn't that funny? I love when Christians bring up that argument. Thank you for making a really stupid argument so I can debunk it as well. Well, Pharaoh was killing babies, so then God did it? What? How does that make it okay? At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. God did that, okay? God hardened the heart of Pharaoh and then murdered children because of it. And you have the gall, Gothix, to tell me that the Bible provides a moral compass and a moral anchor for Christians. Not only is this disproven with our newer studies, which show that people are more likely to be aggressive and they're less accepting of gay people, and it predicts a much higher likelihood of scientific illiteracy, we can also just look at the biblical texts themselves. The Bible's not a great place to get your morals from, okay? Tips Fedora, boo-boo.
And that's no bueno for a communist. That's no bueno, because they want control over your moral compass. So going back to what I was saying is, even if you have people that I'm sure, like I said, they're probably really nice people that are not religious, if you don't have an anchor for you.
Really, God avenging his kids' killers is bad? Funny how God didn't actually avenge the kids' killers. He murdered their children. How the fuck does that do anything? Sandra, I'm going to ask you to get in the Discord almost, because you're making so many brain-dead arguments and it's hurting me, okay?
Does not change. The gospel does not change. So essentially, it's an anchor for people in terms of a moral compass. It's never going to change. And that's no bueno for a communist. That's no bueno, because they want control over your moral compass. So going back to what I was saying is, even if you have people that I'm sure, like I said, they're probably really nice people that are not religious, if you don't have an anchor for you, there's a possibility you might drift off into a different direction because of something that is man-made. And some people will say the Bible is man-made. That's a completely different video. I don't have time to get into that. However, gender identity, for example, that is a man-made concept. Transgenderism, it is a man-made concept. It's not something that's recognized in the Bible. And so...
Wait, if it's not recognized in the Bible, that means that it's man-made? So gender identity is actually a social construct. Gender identity would not exist without humans, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The worth we ascribe to money, for example, is a social construct. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that money doesn't have a real effect on people, positive and negative. Look, I don't even know how to respond to this. This is we're actually just watching psychosis right now in action.
Man-made. That's a completely different video. I don't have time to get into that. However, gender identity, for example, that is a man-made concept. Transgenderism, it's a man-made concept. It's not something that's recognized in the Bible. And so the Bible is a direct conflict with a lot of these social justice ideologies. Anti-racism is, again, another direct conflict with that. Anti-racism wants you to judge people based on the color of their skin and discriminate against them. And that in the Bible, it's complete opposite. The whole point of me making this video...
So, does that mean that, like, driving a car is in direct conflict with the Bible? Because cars are man-made and they're not mentioned in the Bible? Does that mean every time you drive your little vehicle down the street, you're actually just like running over Jesus's feelings? What are you saying right now, Gothix?
Was to try and connect.
And yeah, also, yeah, good point, Chad. I don't know how I missed to bring that up. Trans people have existed literally forever. Trans people have existed throughout history in virtually every culture and society since the beginning of time. Just if the Bible doesn't mention it, doesn't mean that it's not like a real thing. What? Oh, boy.
With people that are entrenched in this mindset, this combative, hostile, vitriolic mindset, in trying to connect with these people to let them know that I'm not your enemy and you're not my enemy. The enemy are the people that are watching society fight with each other. And every day we spend fighting with each other.
Who are those people watching society fight with each other? I don't know about you, but I feel like the conspiracy theory of an elite group of evildoers, a secret cabal, causing chaos, responsible for our wars, everything that happens is actually a secret plot by this evil cabal. I don't know, that sounds really familiar to another conspiracy theory I've heard before. You know, it's kind of on the tip of my tongue. I don't know. Maybe you can figure it out, chat.
Other is another day that the people in power are able to further their agenda. We're just handing over our freedoms to them. And I don't say that lightly. The last couple of years, I've just been so... Before I found God, I was spiraling because I felt this sense of despair because, me making so many videos on all of these topics, I found myself saying, what's the point? What's the point? People still think I'm a conspiracy theorist. People still don't want to listen to me. People don't want to wake up. Like, what is the point? Thankfully...
What is the point? Why do people keep thinking I'm a conspiracy theorist when I say that the evil elites are responsible for all the chaos in the world and that the election was stolen? Why are people calling me a conspiracy theorist? Oh, man, For a big, tough conservative, she sure has a massive victim complex.
I don't think like that now because now I have God to lean on. But I found myself in that point a lot of throughout 2021, and in order for us to, I think, fully convey that we are essentially on the same team to everyone else, and this goes for people on the right too. Boo-boos, you still got to live with people on the left. Like, whether you like it or not, they're your neighbors, okay? Yeah, you got to learn to love your neighbors, right? So we got to work together, and we got to find a way to start uniting. But part of the problem is if you have someone like Yuri Bezmenov said, who is demoralized, or you have someone that is following a moral compass that is man-made, it's going to be even more difficult to connect with that person.
So I'll say right now that having a moral compass that is man-made, I'm not exactly sure what she's referring to there. Like, even a moral compass is socially constructed. You realize that, right, Gothix? If humans didn't exist, moral compasses wouldn't be a thing. So that's a whole other conversation. Second of all, yeah, I think that my man-made moral compass is way better than any dipshit thing the Bible says. Okay, I look at things, generally speaking, on does it perpetuate harm on an individual and on broader society. So I got asked the other day, if you look at things based on perpetuating harm, then do you think that self-defense is bad? And I would say absolutely not. Because a society in which people have the ability to defend themselves leads to a safer, less harmful society. It's not that difficult. So I look at things at whether or not it causes harm. Do gay people existing cause harm? Does that cause harm? No. So I don't really have a moral issue with it then. There's nothing harmful being perpetuated by gay people. Now, do Christians cause harm? Now that's a whole other conversation. Now we're talking about a group of people that is way more likely to be against equal rights, that is way more likely to bludgeon minority groups, that's way more likely to hold scientific illiterate views, that's way more likely to believe in conspiracy theories, and is way more likely to deny things like climate change, which is actually something that we all need to be in agreement on if we ever want to actually get fixed. So now I have a bit of an issue there. That doesn't mean all Christians are immoral, but I would say that the Christians perpetuating that are absolutely acting in an immoral way. Yeah. So I'm able to look at this very cut and dry based on does it cause harm, does it not cause harm? And in my opinion, that's a very easy, realistic way to view things. But what does Gothix have? Gothix has Sky Daddy in this ancient book says gay bad, so that just means gay bad. Okay, well, why? Why is it bad? Can you tell me, please? There's not an answer to that question. You'll also notice that a lot of God's commands in the Bible were actually related to reducing harm. So, for example, I bring this up a lot, when God told his people not to eat meat, that wasn't just God making up a rule because he's God and he wants to make up rules. That was because meat back then was way more likely to be rancid and carry parasites and disease. So God said, don't eat meat, which was preventing a harm on his people. So even a lot of God's commandments actually line up with harm or not causing harm. But then when you have these things like, well, God says gay bad. Well, God told Abraham to murder his own son and abused him mentally. Well, God harmed the firstborn sons in Egypt. God caused that murder to occur. Suddenly we sort of have a different version of God here. Suddenly God doesn't seem very moral. And again, keep in mind that by her logic, she is now the type of person who would fall right into the results of this study, showing that people who believe that they have scriptural violence sanctioned by God are more likely to be aggressive. That would be where Gothix would fall right here and right now. Because now, well, God says so. And if God says it, then that makes it moral. So if God says to murder, then it is moral, because God said so. It's circular and it's barbaric.
Me saying this, I'm hoping it does something. I'm hoping it clicks in someone's head, because this is going to take the effort on the people that I'm speaking to. The people that are acting so volatile because they think that they are doing good. And I listen, I don't for one second think that the majority of Americans, or not even just Americans, the whole world is acting like this. But I'm not going to believe for a second that the majority of everyday people are being malicious just to be malicious. I think a lot of people are misguided, and this is the result of following a moral compass that is created for you in the sense of big government. And
What? What does the moral comfort or compass have to do with big government? Notice how it sounds like she's just spewing words. Like usually, Gothix, maybe you're not aware of this, but usually when people form sentences, they form their words in a certain direction and a certain pattern to communicate something. But then all of a sudden we have Gothix up here who's like, you'll notice that they have a man-made moral compass, big government, scary, elites, division, woke. Like, you're not saying things. You're just saying random words. You're not making any sense.
power want to subvert Christianity. It's because they don't want you to fix this. They want you to be slanderous. They want you to be hypocritical. They want you to be full of malice. Here's another one. Ooh, this is a really good one. Jude 1:10. Yet these people slander whatever they do not understand, and the very things they do understand by instinct, as irrational animals do, will destroy them. So now that I've given...
I love how all these verses can easily apply to her, and she just lacks the self-awareness to realize it, dude. This is hilarious. Yet these people slander whatever they do not understand. So you don't understand the distinction between sex and gender. You don't understand systemic racism, and you slander it all the same. You also don't understand gender identity, and you slander it all the same. The very things they do not understand by instinct, as irrational animals do, will destroy them. So this is literally a huge flaw with conservatives, where they want things to be intuitively correct, instinctually correct, and they can't fathom that maybe something could be correct, even though it breaks away from what seems to be instinctually correct. This is like a massive problem with conservatives, Gothix. Are you calling out your audience right now? So for example, it oftentimes feels intuitively incorrect to say that certain outcomes can be racist. When people hear racism, intuitively, instinctually, they think racism is when you go up to somebody, you call them the N-word, you demean them for their race, something along those lines, right? But how can outcomes be racist? That doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense on an intuitive and instinctual level, but once you understand it, it starts to make a lot more sense. That's a perfect example of where conservatives want things to be intuitively correct. It's intuitive that COVID isn't actually that big of a deal, or that the vaccine is spooky. But when you actually understand it, you're wrong.
I'm describing in this video, a lot of these people, I think, are suffering from a broken spirit, and if they read the Bible, I think it would solve a lot of those problems. But anyway, the other day...
Yeah, just read the Bible, guys, you know? Just read the Bible. Read the verse about how she lusted after her lover's horse cock. That was a really good verse.
Because I'm finding all of these gems, I want to start sharing them, with my audience. And so I went on Twitter and I posted one. It's 1 Corinthians 13, 6 through 7. I forget exactly how to pronounce the chapters. I'm still learning. But what I wrote said, love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And then I went on to say that there is no love without truth and no truth without love. A lot of people, because they care about someone, they'll lie to them, because they don't want to hurt their feelings.
Oh, here we
If
go.
you love someone, you're going to tell the truth. And objective truth, by the way, not an opinion on something. That's very different.
The objective truth. What's the objective truth? About what issue? That gender identity isn't real? What are you talking about?
And so I posted that, and whoa, a lot of the...
Yeah, I got pulled up. Woohoo! It's always the people with the most hateful brain-dead takes who love to quote the Bible. Amen! Yes! Yes, Jesus! Thank you, Gothix, for putting me up on screen. I didn't even know I was going to be in this video, but whew, I am glad to be in this video. And this is a perfect example, too, again, how she is deluding herself into believing that she is being the loving one by telling trans people they're not valid, even though she's the one that lacks the understanding and is then going on to slander people. Because intuitively, instinctually, a man is a man and a woman is a woman, just like orange is orange and blue is the color blue. So, yeah, my point totally stands here. Thank you for showing me on screen. Yes! I also love how you blurred my name out, but everybody knows it's me because of my picture.
Responses were very angry. Again, coming from people that follow these social...
And yet your Christian love is some of the most hateful bullshit I've ever had to deal with. Take your religion and shove it up your ass where it belongs. based. Internet personality cries about mean comments, part 3.
Justice ideas. And one thing that I notice, and this is going back to the other post that I mentioned about people slandering things that they don't understand, is that these people have a tendency to copy and paste a certain part of scripture that they don't understand, and they'll spam that chapter or that passage as a way to, I guess, discredit the Bible and somehow prove that followers of Christ.
She put my verse up. Look, I said, been doing some Bible reading and found Ezekiel 23:20 really inspiring. I hope it inspires you also. There she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys and whose emission was like that of a horse. Please tell me the deep understanding here, Gothix, that I clearly didn't get. What was God trying to tell me about the horse genitals?
Or crazy people, or they're bigots, or they're mean, or whatever. And listen, you're gonna get mean people regardless if they're religious or not, clearly. But when I see that, I compare that to a headline reader. Someone that, you know, when we're just talking about politics, they'll look at the headline of an article or scan 1 or 2 articles and say, okay, I know everything there is to know about this situation. It's the same thing with people that have negative things to say about Jesus, is that a lot of the times they'll find a passage and run with it. And that's wrong. You know, I research scripture in the same way that I research things happening in culture. You know, for example.
Yikes. Well, if that's the case, then she's not doing much research at all, boys. Also, what, like, are you saying now you have to read the entire Bible before you can quote a scripture? Have you read the entire Bible yet, Gothix?
That are rolling their eyes, like, I get it. But if you start reading the Bible, maybe listen to some sermons, right? Maybe you go outside, go on nature walks. It's going to really change your perspective. It definitely helps with me. Now, the reason I didn't suggest getting a therapist is it sort of relates to what we're talking about in terms of infiltration.
Oh no, please. Please don't end this video with saying that Marxists have infiltrated therapy. Are you? Oh my god.
There are 2 communist rules, number 32 and number 39, and I'm going to read them to you. Number 32 says, support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics. And then number 39 reads,
there you Remember her argument on the masks where they want to keep us all mentally ill so that they can sell us their pharmaceuticals. And now here we have Gothix saying don't go to therapy because it's communist. What do you say to this? She's literally telling her audience, read the Bible and don't go to therapy. All right, well, guys, I think we need to be praying for all 265,000 of these subscribers because they are definitely on their way to being terminally mentally ill.
Dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals.
What? Who's dominated the psychiatric profession? That's not even a thing. Psychiatric professions are private, right? Like that's part of the problem that us liberals talk about, is that people can't always afford therapy. Use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. What does that even mean? Does that mean like, oh, you're not actually mentally abusing your children, and if the state tries to say you are, they're just Marxists? What?
Let me give you an example of this. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Jordan Peterson. He's a very well-known psychologist. He's an author. He gives various lectures. I saw him recently live. Phenomenal. Go check him out if you ever have the chance. But Dr. Peterson is one of the most vocal individuals who are pushing back against the laws in Canada that are compelling the speech of psychologists.
But I'm not saying words that other people want me to say. And the idea of compelled speech, it's like the bill was this much about gender.
Right.
And it was this much about, oh yeah, the government's going to tell me what to say. Hey,
But
now they're regulating what therapists can say. Therapy session.
In other words,
So we already have compelled speech in virtually every single social setting. So for example, Gothix, I highly doubt that you're allowed to walk into your church service and start screaming the F-bomb. Probably not allowed, right? Are they controlling your speech? Is that compelled speech now? If we have a compelled speech when we refer to people as sir or ma'am or your honor or doctor, we have quote unquote compelled speech in virtually every social setting. Second of all, if we're talking about therapists not respecting like gender pronouns, yeah, that can do actual real harm on the individual. And a therapist's job is to try to ameliorate mental health issues. You know, you'd probably know this if you actually took your nose out of the goddamn book of fairy tales and went to a literal therapist. Go talk to a Christian therapist, you know? You don't have to go see some Marxist therapist. Karl Marx, I'm pretty sure he's taking a break from the psychological field, and now you can go talk to someone else. I'm never going to get over the fact that Gothix's advice here is don't go to therapy because Marxists. Like, she is actually perpetuating literal harmful information here.
The same way that churches are being subverted with social justice,
I like how we're now 40 minutes in of 46 minutes and nowhere, not one example of the church being subverted. You gave us 2 little clips out of context, and that was it.
the intentions of controlling your moral compass. The same thing is happening to the field of psychology. They want full control over your moral compass, and they want full control over up here. So
what? Psychology is helping you understand what's going on up here. How is she so dumb? I'm actually, like, every time I watch a Gothix video, I'm once again in absolute shock and awe that she is such a stupid individual who is somehow taken seriously by literally anyone. Gothix, do you know how much you would benefit from therapy and maybe even meds?
now we have to worry, is my therapist saying these things because they have me in their best interest? Or is my therapist only saying these things because they're afraid of losing their license?
Like what? Let's go ahead and look into the Canada thing real quick. Wait, are we just talking about Bill C-16? Is that still what we're on about? So, of course, she probably didn't actually read what Bill 16 was about. It's simply added transgender individuals, gender expression, and gender identity as a protected class. That's what conservatives are up in arms about. This is like them whining about the compelled speech that now they have to refer to black people as human once the Civil Rights Act went into place. Now that black people are being recognized as a protective group, you're going to compel my speech to call black people human? Oh my God! What's going on? The Marxists! That's the equivalent to what's happening here with C-16. Man, it sucks to be a bigot, you know?
That is scary. And this is what, this is my main argument, is if you have something that can be altered by the people, that means that it can always change, and change doesn't necessarily mean it's for the good. Because now, with these laws that are compelling the speech of doctors, now what's happening, it's creating other problems because people aren't getting properly diagnosed. And that's not good. So
how are people not getting properly diagnosed? Do you have any, that's a pretty bold empirical claim. Do you have any evidence of that?
this is why I'm recommending that the people that I'm speaking to, the ones that are sort of stuck in this combative cycle of, you know, being aggressive and just being angry all the time, this is, you know, I'm recommending that, like I said, watch some sermons, read a few passages, disconnect from social media, disconnect from the news. You don't need to always be feeding your brain with that stuff. You got to detox from it. And if you were to start following the word of God, like I said, the Bible never changes. So it's literally an anchor for you. It's going to keep you grounded. And you don't have to worry about being misled in the wrong direction because the government is intentionally trying to lead you in that direction. It's essentially social engineering that's happening. But yeah, I know that this video was sort of long-winded, but I hope that people who hate watch my videos, especially other content creators with massive platforms, I hope you guys realize that we're not each other's enemy. The enemy are the people that are watching us fight with each other. And not only do I want to see you get better, but I also think your platform could be used in a way that's going to help society as a whole and not whatever political agenda the elites are trying to push.
The elites. All right, we'll go ahead and end it there. So you guys heard it. We have a 46-minute long video in which Gothix said virtually nothing other than don't go to therapy because the communists have infiltrated it. I really hope that Gothix never has a child. Oh my God, I pray that she never has a child. Could you imagine that? Mom, I'm really anxious. Okay, I'm really feeling bad. I think I would like to talk to a therapist. No, honey. Go read the fucking Bible, you heathen. You guys heard it, you know? It's the SJWs and the Marxists that are trying to control everything, but don't go to therapy, don't prioritize your mental health, because that is what Marxists want you to do. And also, read your Bible. 46 minutes to basically tell us that. Thank you, Gothix. Not really. Fuck you.